W. Vince Berry, hitting all the topics like a clothesline flurry. Turn up your speakers and hear them out. You can listen from your car, even on your couch. They too raw, who NXT, handing out smackdowns, follow on IG. Plus, it's sponsored by Tag Me a Date. Go to YouTube and sub now for every update. It's all wrestling here, no safe space. Now listen in, time to hear from some of the greats.
Figure it was fitting.
I dig it.
Sexy boy. I figure it was the only one worth using.
Might have been for this week.
Right? I mean, either that or Alexa Bliss, maybe, but...
Yeah, it might be the other one. We got a little bit of stuff to get into, so welcome to the War Report, brought to you by TagMeADate.com, the first and only dating site exclusively for fans of professional wrestling. We are live once again, as we are every Tuesday, 7 p.m. on Eastern Time. And it is time for the show, so I don't know what we should dive into, because we got last week's SmackDown with this Alexa Bliss situation. We've got the WWE announcing the Thunderdome. And then we've got Monday Night Raw, AEW, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. What do we think?
I mean, we definitely have quite a bit to get into. You know, I think, for me, I think we should start with the new Thunderdome or whatever the fuck they're calling it in the future now at the Amway Center.
Right.
It looks like it's going to be some fan virtual reality. I don't know if anyone out there watches America's Got Talent, but I have a feeling it's going to be something similar to the way they're shooting right now, which they have, you know, screens around the whole thing, and it's all people tuning in live.
That's what it seems like they're gonna be doing to make the show more interactive, because they had a thing where fans could, like, they encouraged you to submit an email address or fill out a form or something, and they were going to contact you about, like, potentially being part of the Thunderdome.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you know, it sounds pretty cool, and I think it just keeps showing that they're trying. They're trying to evolve. They're trying to figure out new things under these new circumstances. How to make it a compelling show again. So I give that to them. You know, they're definitely trying. On the other side, you know, how much of the things that they're trying are succeeding. You know.
Well, I feel like they're. I don't know if they're looking at it from the right angle, because they're going, well, AEW has crowds and they're getting good ratings. Again, they're still not beating Raw or SmackDown, but they're doing very well in the demographics. What do they call it? The 18 to 35, which isn't the actual demographic is 18 to 49. But the 18 to 35 demographic, AEW is equaling or beating Raw and SmackDown in the percentage or the shares of people that age they get. So WWE is looking at it, oh, they have crowds. Excuse me. Oh, they have an outdoor arena. They have crowds. They have this, they have that. What they're not realizing is the other thing that AEW has, which isn't an aesthetic thing, is that their storylines are, like, grounded in reality and make sense. And AEW does long-term storytelling, where even it's been a year. The Hangman Page thing hasn't been resolved. Hangman Page and the Elite. What's his issue with Kenny? What's his issue with the Young Bucks? They didn't come out and be his managers or his seconds during his world title challenge against Chris Jericho to be the first AEW champion. And ever since then, there's been tension in the group. This has been a year's story that people aren't going, oh, would you just finish it already? Blah, blah, blah. And then the ones that they did say, like with the Dark Order, people were like, oh, well, why don't they just wrap this up? And now they actually, like, got invested in it and realized that this is, like, you know, the Dark Order's another good story. So I think WWE is looking at one thing and thinking that that's the solution, when the other thing is really, it's not how many screens you put up, it's not how many fans you put on the screen, it's not how much fake noise you pump in. It's the stories that you're presenting on TV, and it has to make sense, and it has to be engaging to the audience. There's some stuff that's working. There's some stuff that's really not.
I really think that WWE has to get away from that mentality that the typical wrestling fan doesn't have the patience or the what's the word I'm looking for? The like they get too antsy. I don't think that's the case. We can handle a good long storyline if the wrestlers are doing it well and the writing for them backs up what they're trying to do.
And that's unfortunately the big if. And sometimes, that's a lot of it, is that it's not the execution of the wrestlers. Like we said with the eye for an eye match, Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins wrestled a good wrestling match that the writing team insisted have this stupid stipulation added to it that there was no way out of, so they picked like the lamest possible solution to it. It didn't have to be the way it was. You didn't have to call it an eye for an eye match and say that the rule is somebody's eye has to be taken out. It could have just been you win by blinding the other person, and then it makes sense because, I don't know. Again, it's good wrestlers, good people who are good at promos, good at wrestling. They have a good look, good gear. They've been superstars for a long time, and then they come out and they say lines that aren't written by them, that don't fit the character that they've established on TV for so many years, to the point where a lot of these characters don't feel like the characters they even were. And it just, you can tell that they're not writing their own promos. You can tell it's being written by somebody else. And then when you go and see like John Moxley or somebody else in AEW, not to make this an AEW versus WWE thing, but it's the only other example I have. When you let guys go and cut a promo, sometimes you get stuff that's not good, but you've got to learn from that. And that's how guys improved. You went out there without a script, you cut a promo, and then either it stunk and it bombed, or it went well and the fans bought into it. So the idea that the writers have to script these tightly scripted lines, that it doesn't work, because in wrestling, in any entertainment, or whatever, you have to feel the audience. In music, you have to know, all right, I played this one song and the fans didn't really like it. I'm going to play a song that's different. Oh, the fans didn't like the line that I said when I was cutting this promo. I'm going to change my approach. I'm going to say something else. You remember your first promo that you were out there. You're like, all right, I'm going to say some bad shit about the town, and you got everybody to boo you immediately. So it was just, you had to decide what approach you were going to take, and you executed that. It's the same thing with cutting the promos. They shouldn't be scripted. They should be outlines. They should say, okay,
hit
Seth
bullet
Rollins,
points.
Right. This is bing, bing, bing. Like they do it for some guys. They say, oh, well, Roman Reigns.
I'm going to just do it in here.
He's going to do it. Eric, are you doing your podcast? Did you tell him about Bobo Brazil? He was my favorite wrestler. He was a Negro.
So here's my thing. I think you're right. I think that, Roman Reigns is a perfect example, because his promo work is usually pretty shit. But there's been a few times that he comes out and you can tell that it really wasn't as scripted as the other ones, and he cuts a much better promo. And it worked for a lot of people, like The Rock in Austin. Once they let them do their thing, they became on to be some of the biggest names in the business.
But that's like even what they say. Roman Reigns only gets bullet points. He doesn't get scripts. Well, sometimes he gets scripts. Trust me. A lot of that shit sounds like scripts. When he only gets bullet points because the promo is better.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, remember the Suffer and Succotash thing? Oh my God. Yeah. That was the fucking worst. So yeah, there's shit like that. And yeah, I feel like they need to look at the whole production, not just we're moving arenas, we're adding pyro and lasers and whatever the fuck. That's all great, but it's window dressing. They need to address the core issue, which is there's an awful lot of cooks, but when it comes down to it, it's like right at the end, all these cooks work for a week to prepare a meal, and then on Monday night they put the meal on the table and people are going to get there. And then Gordon Ramsay comes out and says, this is shit, this is shit, this is shit. Make it all again, but make it different. You made mac and cheese, I want mashed potatoes. You made steak, I want chicken.
You cow.
Right, yeah, but that's the equivalent of like you're preparing for a banquet or a wedding and you cook all this food. And then when you get there the day of the wedding, they go, oh, well, we wanted steak instead of chicken or salmon instead of beef or whatever. It fucks everything up. Like, these guys write these stories, and maybe they do make sense when they write them and what their intended ending is. But once it gets to Vince McMahon and he makes his changes or cuts something out or decides that the story's not, whatever the case is, that's where the problem starts, is that there's not really one single vision that's being seen out all the way through. It's a bunch of people throwing ideas at a wall, and then Vince McMahon takes the ones that he likes and runs with them, but it's not. It's like telephone. It's an interpretation of an interpretation of an interpretation of what this writer was actually trying to accomplish. And it just, you can tell, it just, the direction of some of this stuff is just, they're spinning their wheels.
That's good shit.
Right, it's good shit, pal. But no, that's the thing, is that's how they look at it. They go, oh, well, you know, it's such good shit. Why aren't people watching it? Oh, they always complain online, but they'll still watch. But that's not true, because look at the ratings. They're fucking terrible. They're terrible this week. 1.48 million people watched Raw this week with a 0.48 in the demo. The demo is very close to AEW's numbers, and the actual number is like 1.4 million. Think about that. The Rock, This Is Your Life segment. How many millions? 11 million people or something. It was the highest rated segment in television history that year, or whatever the fuck it was. And now we've got 1.48 million people watching.
Yeah, they used to average like 6
Yeah,
to
it's crazy.
8 years ago.
Not anymore.
It's like we always say, it's an audience of one.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes.
But now you've got to try and win people back. And I don't know how, I mean, at this point, what can you do? You've blown all of your big comebacks. The Rock comes back every couple months. Stone Cold makes appearances. Hogan makes appearances. And how long are you going to rely on guys that were over 20, 30, 40 years ago to give you a bump in your ratings every once in a while? They've got to, I appreciate that they are building new stars.
They need their next John Cena. They need their next marquee guy.
Now look at so Becky Lynch. Seth Rollins said in an interview that Becky Lynch, he kind of intimated that Becky Lynch is taking interviews in Hollywood for when she has the baby, and then she's going to try and pursue some acting. And of course, this is the WWE's number one fear. Oh, we don't want to push anybody too hard because they're going to become too big for WWE and then leave to go act. And it's happened a lot. Hogan left to go do movies. Ventura did movies. Piper did movies. Savage did movies later in his career, but like Cena decided to go do movies. The Rock, they're all doing different stuff. They almost made a Nash Bridges spinoff for Steve Austin back in like 1999, and he was going to spin off and do that instead of wrestle. And like, that's their fears that they build up. But they should turn that into a positive. They should say, look, you're going to be the top guy for 5 years, and then you can go off and do Hollywood. We're not even going to be mad because we know that's just how it goes. They shouldn't, at this point, they should expect it. It's been happening so frequently, they have to expect that their main event player is eventually just going to become a pop culture icon that has to go do other stuff.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Charlotte eventually gets stuff like that.
Well, of course not. She's, 6.5 feet tall, gorgeous blonde with fake knockers. Of course she's going to get opportunities. They're going to be knocking at the door like they're knocking at those knockers. But
Bret Hart was in that, what was that Western show?
Lonesome Dove.
Lonesome Dove, yeah. Bret Hart was in there for a while.
Yes, and OSW Review is doing a review of that, and I can't wait because I've never seen Lonesome Dove, and I'm very interested to see what how Bret Hart did. I've heard that he was pretty good. This was like 1994, I want to say, when he was in it. So,
and it's funny because this is basically like the original gimmick they were going to give Bret Hart, like some kind of cowboy gimmick.
Yeah, I don't think that would have worked.
It definitely would not have worked.
I mean, here's the thing. No, Canada kind of has a perception internationally as like, I don't know, kind of like softy French weird people that like, They drink maple syrup and they eat Canadian bacon.
I mean,
and,
that's
like,
really only Quebec. Yeah,
right, but that's what's like. There's a very big rural. The reason it kind of would have worked is there's a big rural population in Canada. Like the Stampede Wrestling, the Calgary Stampede is a big like cattle call and rodeo competition that happens every year. So that's where Stampede Wrestling came from. Was this very country thing of a fucking rodeo. So I kind of get what they were going to do. They were going to be like, oh, he's the Calgary Stampede, Bret Hart. And then it was just going to die a death. But yeah, the excellence of execution, the Hitman, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. Perfect gimmick for the guy. The black and the pink, it just, for whatever reason, the whole thing worked.
Well,
but there's nobody like that.
Bret made it
anymore.
work.
Right, and that's the thing. There's nobody like Bret anymore. There's nobody like Shawn anymore. I
That's
love Drew McIntyre. He's a great worker. But when you go, look at Stone Cold in this pride. It's not a fair representation, but he's the WWE champion. You have to compare it. And then you go, shit, he's not Savage. He's not HBK.
Yeah.
But he's Drew. You know, he's good enough to be
But
Drew.
look at Undertaker. Like, nobody but Mark Calaway could have played it that well and for that long, you know?
Right, because, I mean, we see it right now. The Fiend is something that if it came out around the same time as The Undertaker or Goldust or any of those gimmicks, he would have been the Fiend from like 1996 until the day he retired. And he'd still be doing indie shows as the Fiend.
Yeah, like Kane or something, yeah.
Right. Now, this is something, right, exactly like Kane. He's somebody who you could work that gimmick forever. Now, you're already, I don't want to say the cracks are starting to show, but you see what's happening. He's the Fiend, but he's not really the Fiend. Like, the character's undergoing an evolution, which I appreciate because The Undertaker evolved over the years, but how long is the Fiend thing going to last before he just goes back to Bray Wyatt?
Yeah, that's why I feel like they're doing like a kind of a Three Faces of Foley kind of thing.
Yeah, they're doing something weird here with Braun, and I guess we'll get right into it.
I'm okay if they continuously throughout stories start with Bray and then the Eater of Worlds Bray and then the Fiend in the end.
Well, I mean, it makes sense.
Because it keeps you wanting the Fiend. You know what I mean? So I think that could kind of work. I guess this is a good transition. We should talk about SmackDown and the return of Braun with no hair. And his promo work in the ring, which I happen to thought was really good. I thought Alexa was really good. Him attacking her. I'm just very curious to see where this is going to go because I want to see Alexa be Sister Abigail. I really do. So,
but Mandy Rose was supposed to be Sister Abigail. The internet told me it was Mandy Rose.
Or Liv Morgan, or, you know.
It was Liv Morgan. Oh, my God. She's Sister Abigail.
Like,
she cut her hair. She cut her hair.
I got this feeling like they may do like a double turn.
What if they... I feel like they're almost going to... yes, it seems like a double turn, but what if they did where it seems like Alexa Bliss was supposed to be Sister Abigail, and then it's like Mercedes Martinez or somebody?
That's funny.
They just fucking swerve it and be like, nope, this is a brand new, call up or new person that you haven't seen is now Sister Abigail, instead of making Sister Abigail an established character like Alexa Bliss. But who knows?
I'm okay with that too, but
yeah, I just, you know what? I don't want to judge this as its parts right now, because that's all it is its parts. We don't know what the ending is. And this is something
they probably don't know what the ending is.
Oh, yeah. But here's the thing. The difference between the Braun Strowman angle, which is one of the big angles on SmackDown, and then like was it Retribution? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
That's so bad I don't even remember their name. The problem with that is they don't know the ending to that one either, but they also don't know what they're doing every week. At least here with this Braun Strowman thing, it seems like they're adding steps and they're adding layers, and that this is going to come to a resolution, or at least the pay-per-view is going to be that next big jump in the story. Like the last pay-per-view was them in the water. So the next pay-per-view has to move things along to... I don't know if it's going to conclude or if it's going to conclude at the next Payback pay-per-view that's in a month. whatever the case may be. I'm at least willing to give this one a chance because it seems like they're trying to do something. With Retribution, it was dead the first day, and it's been dead every week since, and it stinks, and there's no saving it. They should unmask them all as El Torito and Mascarita Sagrada and just fucking call it a day and put them in a crate and ship them off to Mexico, and that's it.
OVW,
exactly right. Like they do with the Spirit Squad. Exactly what I'm saying. Like they just have to recognize that the shit, whatever they're doing, they either have to pull the trigger on it or cut it because the current version isn't working.
I still think there's time to save it. I just don't know what that is. But I do think there's time to save it. I think a lot of it is going to depend on who they actually decide is going to be a part of it.
Would a guy like Ciampa or Dijak save it? I don't know. I'm legit. I don't know the answer to that. I'm asking that as
I'm kind of thinking like Dijak. I think would.
Well, last night I pitched the possibility of like Orton and Flair are actually in cahoots because you really never did see him actually punt Flair. The lights mysteriously went off right then. Like maybe he's.
I don't know. Because anything is possible. Literally,
there's been nothing between
possible.
Orton and Retribution at all. They've seemed to have interacted with everybody else except him.
That's true. You're not wrong with that.
That is true.
I don't think it's going to be as elaborate as like Bully Ray explaining how Aces and Eights came together, which his explanation was actually better than the entire actual angle. But the way he described it was brilliant.
Well, they had to write themselves out of a corner because the Aces and Eights had been attacking Bully Ray too. So they had to like explain why they attacked him too.
Yeah, and then like when Taz revealed himself during Bully's wedding to Brooke Hogan or something.
Yeah, because he took the jacket off and you didn't see it, the audience, the camera. But
and he turns around, there's Aces and Eights.
That was a good reveal. I mean, the rest of the Aces and Eights, you can say what you will about it.
Even the Devon one was good too.
Yeah, there was some good stuff in there.
And then they randomly put Mr. Anderson in there, and then,
Yeah, that just the whole thing kind of became a mess, and then like didn't Immortal get involved, and it was a shit show.
We have fucking like Garrett Bischoff and
Garrett Bischoff,
Wes Briscoe.
Yeah, international wrestling superstars Wes Briscoe and Garrett Bischoff as part of the biggest baddest gang in TNA. Okay, thanks guys.
But at the same time, Bully Ray was just so good that it kind of somewhat worked.
So I guess what you're saying is that this kind of is what Steve is saying. A guy like Dijak with the right story and right explanation could turn this around.
Correct.
Yeah. But I think it has to be something big. And people, here's the problem. I'm going to back up a little bit because this wasn't just it's not my idea, but it's something that it was passed around the internet when they announced that the Thunderdome thing was happening.
Beyond Thunderdome.
Yeah, so the suggestion...
We don't need another hero. When are they going to play Tina Turner,
They really, what? If they don't, they're missing an opportunity because they're already stealing the Thunderdome name.
That's true.
But the idea, Brian Alvarez said it, and then some people on Reddit said a similar thing, is don't tell people that you're going to this Amway Center to do this thing until today, the Tuesday after this past Monday's Night's Raw. And then at the end of Raw, have Retribution blow up the building. Oh no, we don't have this building to use anymore because Retribution blew it up. That's a big deal. We're going to move to the Amway Center. And by the way, we're going to have the Thunderdome. And then there's a story and things get moved along. Now it's just we have to put out a press release because the fucking governor the mayor or whatever wants to announce it and, get jerked off by the press for this thing. It's so corporate. Like they should say, fuck you in your fucking press release. Put it out next week. We've got a building to blow up on TV to further the story along.
Like one of the reasons it was dead in the water right away was because they freaking announced it beforehand. Like it's not like the Nexus where they just all of a sudden Barrett and all his guys come and beat the shit out of everybody.
And then all they do is what did they do? They messed with an electrical box or something and threw Molotov. They didn't do enough on their first day to establish themselves as a threat, and they still haven't continued to establish themselves as a threat.
The cinder block thing last week was Well, the second cinder block was
Right, yeah. The first one, they broke the door, and then the second one goes through the exact same empty spot, and then they cheer. And it was just like the goofiest bullshit ever. Like, honestly, I mean, I know you would probably get in trouble for it if you were one of the wrestlers, but it would have looked better. I would have just broke one of the regular windows with it. Be like, fuck it. I'm throwing we already have the cinder blocks. I'm just going to break the window. And that's one of those things where they'd be mad. Like, Michael Hayes would be mad, but then, like, Vince McMahon would be happy that you did it. That's some good shit, pal. You broke the real window. You know, like, you just see him. He would be so happy. He would be so happy. Everybody else would be pissed, and he would be so happy. But yeah, they just haven't established themselves as a threat within the universe of the show. They can turn the lights on and off pretty well, and I guess they can do something with the cameras now. But I mean, I don't know.
Anybody can do that.
Well, yeah, because apparently now they can just release. Oh, there was security camera footage of Zelina Vega poisoning Montez Ford. Well, shit, if there was security camera footage, why didn't you have it last Monday? It's not that hard to look up security camera footage.
And then I wonder if they're gonna link this retribution thing to that thing that they were doing with the like the cameras and shit.
Well, that's what it might be. Is that this whole
Like the what do you call it? The when they found out like Ziggler was Sonya Deville was like sent the message and all that.
Right, that's what I feel like. All this could end up being related as one big thing.
As long as it's not Kevin Nash sending a text to himself.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen anymore. But it's I don't know. The retribution thing isn't very engaging to me. The underground thing, I'm still trying to figure out what they're.
Yeah, I'm still on the fence too.
But what it's not a bad idea. But then, like when Dolph Ziggler beats Eric from the War Raiders.
Yeah, I didn't get
really
that.
Like, oh, he put his thumb in his eye and then got the tap out. Oh, all right. Well, so Dolph Ziggler still can't win a regular match. Like, you know, it doesn't matter who he faces. He can't win a regular match unless he like cheats or something else. He's the ultimate job guy. And this is a guy. I'm somebody who loves Dolph Ziggler and was so happy when he won the world title 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and then they fucking killed all that enthusiasm. So fuck him. But it just, I don't know what this end game is. Shane is still there, but then didn't the Hurt Business take over the Underground at the end of 1 week?
Yeah, but that was like just the end of the week they took over, I guess.
I'll tell you what, though. Right. Those guys are killing it.
Oh, yeah, those guys are great. And now Cedric is getting involved?
I thought Cedric was going to turn last night until MVP talked to him. Then I'm like, okay, then they're not going to do it.
Yeah, I really thought they were going to pull the trigger on it. I think they're going to need to eventually, though. Because he needs a little something different.
So we're about halfway through the show. I'm getting all choked up.
A little verklempt.
Little verklempt. Talking about the SummerSlam.
He just remembered the Undertaker's last ride and got all choked up again. It's all right. Happens to everybody.
We should start to dissect and break down our SummerSlam picks for the weekend.
Is it really Sunday?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Holy dicks! I had no idea.
Wait, and then Payback is a week later.
Yeah, I know Payback's a week, which makes no fucking
sense.
Oh, so we can talk about this as part of the picks. Well, I'll get to it. But I just remembered something that we got to see. I got to ask you guys what do you think the direction they're going to go in. But we'll start at the beginning. Match number 1: Street Profits against Andrade and Angel Garza with Zelina Vega for your Campeonatos de Parejas de WWE, aka the Raw WWE Tag Team Championships. I feel like the Street Profits.
I
got
this one,
right?
My gut is saying that it might actually go to Garza and Vega and all them.
Yeah, I mean, Montez cut such a strong promo last night.
Yes.
Which, so I feel bad because, Angelo Dawkins is sitting there like, come on, just stutter once. Just stutter. I don't want you to be a single star. Just mess up.
Yeah, right.
The more he talks, the more you're like, what the fuck is this guy hanging around the tag team division for? Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's what Tucker thinks about Otis, too.
Yeah, exactly. Tucker's hanging out for dear fucking life, too. The poor guy. The only guys that aren't going to break up are the New Day. Fingers crossed. But I don't know. I want to say the Street Profits just on the strength of Montez's promo. But Steve, you're right. Something about it in the back of my mind is like they did that fucky thing with the poisoning. So I feel like that there's something's gonna come of that. Whether Bianca poisons Zelina or one of the other guys as like revenge, or whether somebody comes out with a cup with something in it and it gets thrown in their face and that's the end of the match. I don't know, but I feel like the poisoning thing has to come back around because they talked about it so much.
Right. And my feeling is this has been such a detailed storyline that if they kept the belts, the feud's technically over. Whereas this will continue it out through, well, I guess Payback a week later. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? Fuck. It's so hard to tell with 2 pay-per-views back to back. Especially when they're trying to pop a rating on live TV. So sometimes they hold back the shit they were going to put on pay-per-view and like put it on a Monday night to try and get good ratings. McIntyre Orton for the WWE title.
That one, I'm
a question mark on that one too.
That's a
man.
tough
that is, because part of me feels like Orton's gonna get the win.
He's like, he's putting in the best work that he's put in several years, and you almost want to say, okay, well, if this is his last go around, the old gunslinger is going to get one more title run, and then the kid's going to take the title back. Maybe, maybe it's a 1 week thing. If the next pay-per-view is in a week, maybe Orton surprises him with like a flash RKO or a punt kick and stacks him up and gets a 3 count real quick. And you get like a cage match or a stipulation match or a submission match or an Iron Man match or something for payback.
I mean, some people were proposing that Orton gets it at some point and then Drew gets it again finally at WrestleMania yet again, only with people, hopefully.
Only with people this time. Isn't that nice, people?
And you noticed I said the word hopefully.
Yeah, listen, I am not. You're saying hopefully is really extremely hopeful. I have almost zero confidence that we're going to have a legitimate WrestleMania in the same scope and style as the original WrestleManias for a very long time, unfortunately. It's just unfortunately not feasible unless we get a vaccine, unless we get some kind of improvement here. I don't know. So we just got to, the thing is, it's not just wrestling that is dealing with this problem. It's all sports and entertainment. So, and every aspect of the world. So everyone's in a unique position, but they're in a position to learn from each other. And that's why, like this Thunderdome thing, they're taking things from other television programs and other sports to try and compile it into what they want to do. Which, like you said, Steve, at the beginning of the show, that's great. It just, we have to see it play out, and we have to see what it's going to look like on Friday before we can make any judgment. I don't particularly like the fans on the green screen thing in the background. It's distracting to me. But if it's not that bad, then if it blends in, if it looks natural, if it looks good, that's great. This title match is a real question mark for me because I feel like, and you always feel like this with Randy Orton, he's a threat. Whether or not he wins, it's not like wrestling Dolph Ziggler, where you go, oh, this guy's not gonna. He couldn't win unless he dropped a fucking safe on Drew's head. You know what I mean? Like that's the way you look at one of those matches. But then Randy Orton, you're like, this guy, he's always got a trick up his sleeve. He's crafty. So
I kind of like though that it's a question mark. It makes it more exciting.
It makes it feel important. Yeah. Unlike some of the other shit that happens on this program.
Yeah, it's not the predictable thing,
Definitely not. So Apollo Crews walking in as the United States champion, facing MVP. Does he walk out as U.S. champion?
I actually think MVP is taking the belt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning that way too. Even though they've played hot potato with it so much. They need to just settle on one of these guys and let them ride it out for a little while. And then if you want to give it back to the other guy, you can still do that. But like, they flipped this title so much, they just have to pick one and stick with it for like a month or two.
Maybe MVP will have another year reign like he did the last time.
I wouldn't with the way he's working. I wouldn't care if he did. This guy, I mean, he's the best. Again, it's like Randy Orton. He's aging like wine. It's the best he's ever been.
It's amazing.
So yeah, I think I'm gonna take this one. Dominic Mysterio, which all right. Before we even talk about this match, I gotta get this out. It bothers me. Rey, R-E-Y, Mysterio. There's Rey, R-E-Y, spelled R-E-Y, is not Raymond. It's not short for Raymond.
It means king.
It means king in Spanish. He's the king of mystery or the Mysterio, whatever you want to call him. He's not Raymond Mysterio.
Who's calling him Raymond Mysterio?
No. So here's what I'm saying. He's not Raymond Mysterio. So why is Dominic Mysterio? Do they think he doesn't have a? Do they think that the WWE universe thinks that when this kid pulls out his driver's license to buy beer, it says Dominic Mysterio on it? I just don't. If he's I don't know. He needs a mask. He needs something mysterioso about him if he's going to be Dominic Mysterio.
Yeah. What is the Spanish word for prince?
Maybe he'll debut a mask at the pay-per-view.
Prince is just princess is princesa. So I think it would Prince would be like Principio. No, Principio is principal. I don't know. It's something along those lines. Yeah, it's something along those lines. Princo. I'm really butchering Spanish right now. My high school Spanish teacher. I apologize, Mrs. Barrett, Senora Barrett. You'd be very mad at me right now.
Princo Mysterio.
Yeah, but like I don't know. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like they do. There's already an El Hijo de Rey Mysterio, but like there's something you could do with that. And
I would love a mask on him though, like at least just for like this match.
Or like, how about he wrestles this match and Seth Rollins does something and scars his face for life, so he has to wear a mask when he wrestles. You know, that's such an old school like 70s. He was so ugly they had to put a mask on him, like Kane. You know, what if he just beats the shit out of him? It's like, oh, his face is so badly beaten, he was unrecognizable. He's wearing a mask from now on, and then he's like, you know, got a Mysterio mask. I don't know.
We are all in agreement though that Dominic has to win, right?
Yeah, it's got to be.
Oh, but I don't know.
His debut match,
does he have to win? The way they're setting this up, yes, because otherwise he's dead in the water. But he's wrestling a former multi-time WWE champion in Seth Rollins, and then if Seth Rollins gets beaten by this kid on his very first match, unless like Rey Mysterio, the only way it makes sense is if Rey is the deciding factor in this match.
Well, it's also a street fight, though, too.
Right, and that's the thing. It's a street fight, so they gave... I'm glad they recognized that Dominic wasn't ready to wrestle a one-on-one singles match with Seth Rollins. That's intimidating as fuck for a guy's first match. A street fight, you can break out weapons, you can do a little walk-and brawl, you can roll them out of the ring and whatever. You know, there's all kinds of things you can do to kind of like smoke and mirrors a street fight, which is great. It's a good idea. It's not a bad idea. It's just usually... I don't know. You get like, you know, Dominic Mysterio starts off wrestling a guy like Apollo Crews. And then, you know, he beats I almost call him Nakazawa because that's on AEW. But he beats like Akira Tozawa or somebody like that and then works his way up to Seth Rollins. Like, this is right out the gate. You're a main eventer now. Deal with it. That's a lot of pressure for a young guy.
At the same time, I think Rollins is high enough in the company where it's not really going to affect him that much.
It won't affect him because he can always get his heat back. It's not the finish. To me, again, there's a lot of this WWE stuff. It's going to be a well-wrestled match. They're going to be stunts and all bells and whistles. The finish has been the problem for a lot of the recent WWE booking. The way they book the finishes of these matches is stunk. So if Rey... So you remember when Dominic helped Rey against Brock Lesnar and they hit the double 619 and they double pinned him and whatever and they almost beat Brock Lesnar and Rey would have won the title? First of all, I think he should have won the title there. And then Brock can always get it back. But they could do that moment again. But this time they hit the double 619, double frog splash, and Dominic pins Seth. And there you go. That's a reason that Seth could lose, is because Rey and Dominic hit him with a double 619, hit him with a double frog splash, and that's plausible. Just going out and having like a chain wrestling match with Dominic Mysterio and you do a couple lucha libre spots, and then he like rolls you up in a victory roll and gets the 3 count, and then you're out of there. Like that's gonna look like shit. So I don't know. I hope they've got a good finish.
Yeah, and Ray's there as an equalizer because Rollins is going to have Murphy there.
Right. And the only thing we don't know is does Seth's congregation get bigger? And is that, that the finish? So you've got Ray fighting off Murphy while Dominic fights Seth, but then that rumored Dijak comes out and now he's, part of the congregation. I don't know. At least there's a question mark. Which is good. You don't want to. We're talking about, like we said, with the other matches, like Dolph Ziggler against Drew. There was no drama. We knew what was going to happen. Let's just get it over with. At least with these matches, we're not sure. We're split on them. I don't know who I'm picking until Sunday, really. And that's whatever, whoever I feel like at the time. Right now, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, it might come down to like an hour before the show.
Yeah. So the next 2 matches are very interesting. Sasha Banks, as the Raw Women's Champion, defends against Asuka. And then Bayley, as SmackDown Women's Champion, defends against Asuka. I have a feeling that Asuka's not going to lose 2 matches in one night. The odds of her winning 2 matches in a row are much better than her losing 2 matches in a row, I think. But ultimately, I feel like it's got to be a split where one of Sasha Banks or Bayley loses the title to further their storyline, and then one of them is going to, So, for example, Sasha wins because Bayley helps her, but like Sasha's hurt, so then Sasha can't be Bayley's manager, so Sasha can't help Bayley. Asuka wins, and then Bayley turns on Sasha, and then Asuka goes away with the SmackDown title, and Bayley and Sasha feud for the Raw Women's title.
I definitely think that this is probably the direction they're going to go. That Bayley's going to be the one to lose the belt because she's been the longer reigning. And then that's going to start the inner turmoil with her and Sasha again, and then that's going to eventually split them up.
Because then it can't happen right away. Like, I don't think it can happen on Sunday, but it could happen the next Sunday at Payback because then they defend the women's tag team championships at that show. So if one of them loses a title at SummerSlam and that builds tension, it could come to a head at Payback and then they lose the titles and that's it. The mega powers explode. I feel like that, that's got to be the direction because they've honestly at this point, for me, they've drug it out too far. The Sasha Bayley thing should have happened so many years ago that at this point I'm like, okay, let's just do it. If we're doing it, let's just do it. So I just want to see the match at this point. Just give us the match. Just give us the match. That's it. But I like, and on one hand, I don't want to say bored with it. I just wish they would progress things. But on the other hand, there's a lot of ways they could go with this. Asuka, because first of all, for those of you who don't know, if you're paying attention at home here, Sasha Banks has held the WWE women's title of some sort. I want to say 4 times, 5 times. She has never had a successful title defense, not counting NXT, just main roster. She's never had a successful singles title defense.
Which is amazing.
Because she kept losing it back to Charlotte.
Yeah, but so think about that. That could be Sunday. Sasha gets her first ever title defense in her career, and that's a big deal because it was against Asuka. And then she's so beat up from the match she can't help Bayley, and then Bayley ends up losing because Sasha wasn't there for her. Could be the way they go, or they go the other way, where Sasha keeps the streak alive, the losing streak is alive. Sasha loses the title, Bayley retains, and then they do the double. They do the turn the other way. But I feel like the first one's more plausible, where Bayley's going to lose. So,
yeah, I definitely like if they go the route where one of them is going to lose, it's going to be Bayley.
Yeah. I don't know why they've put this. Wikipedia has these matches in a weird order, so I'm not going to go to the very next one. I'm going to go to the one that they put as the main event, but I don't think it's going to be the main event because that doesn't make any fucking sense. Mandy Rose versus Sonya Deville in a hair versus hair match. Now, before we get into that,
Don't care.
yeah, no, I know. But here's an interesting thing. So you might have heard, if you were following the news, that a weird stalker guy has been stalking Sonya Deville for years on social media and
This
attempted
is
to
crazy.
attempted to real life kidnap her. This isn't part of the Retribution storyline. It's not part of this bullshit. This is a real life weirdo fan who got obsessed with her. Straight guy wanted a lesbian to fall in love with him somehow because that works out. And decided, I guess, the best way to prove his love to her was to drive to her house with a bunch of like shit that you would use to kidnap somebody and then try to kidnap her. What adds a little wrinkle to this story is that when Sonya Deville fled her house from this crazy person that they saw on the security cameras and the security alarm went off, do you know who fled the house with her? Mandy Rose. She was there that night, and they both escaped the house.
Well, I mean, they are still friends, obviously.
Right, but it's just funny that like this whole thing is a big bad feud. They hate each other, cutting each other's hair and shaving their heads and shit, and like legitimately in real life had each other's backs in a very scary situation.
That's amazing. And they did catch the guy, right?
Yep, they caught him, arrested. They, people found his social media and like a big creepy weirdo, of course. That's just par for the course, unfortunately, with obsessed fans, not just of wrestling. It's not just wrestling fans. Wrestling fans are weird, but then, fans of a lot of stuff are weird.
Yeah.
K-pop. Anybody who likes K-pop is probably weird.
Yeah.
So it's, just don't be obsessed. If there's one takeaway from that, just don't be a fucking creepy weirdo. Watch your show and be entertained.
Yeah.
But like, and the people who are like they bug Seth Rollins and they bug Becky Lynch about like their baby and the pregnancy and shit. Like, just stop it.
Yeah.
The baby's gonna come when it comes, and it's gonna have a name and it's gonna have life, and like, just fucking leave it alone. Like,
It's like the dude
you're
that
not
tried
entitled
to
that information.
Yeah, it's like the dude that tried to get Orton's autograph at the gym. That's
Or
do
the
that.
like the worst ones are the airport, and you
The
see those
Sasha
pictures
Banks
like,
airport thing. It
oh,
was like
Sasha
2 in the
Banks
morning.
airport photos are the fucking funniest thing when you feel
2 in
so
the
bad
morning.
for them. Yeah, it's bullshit.
But unrelated, real quick, they did finally catch the guy that murdered Jam Master Jay.
Yes, that's good news. It only took what, 18 years?
Crazy, right?
Yeah. So the final match here, I know I didn't pick anybody for this. I feel like Mandy Rose. Here's the thing: Mandy Rose already got her hair cut from a
Mandy
very
Rose
long
has
cut
to
before she-
win.
Right. She has to
Yeah.
win, and I hate to be that guy, but it wouldn't surprise me that a lesbian woman would want to shave her head as a hairstyle to wear in real life. So she probably was like, you know what, I'm just going to shave. I want to shave my head anyway. Let's do it on TV.
All right. I can give you
It
that.
reminds
I'm
me
just
of
saying, like,
Victoria
it's hard.
and Molly Holly. Remember that?
Yeah. Well, poor Molly Holly shaved her head for that, and then fucking almost nothing came of it. But it was an amazing WrestleMania moment for sure, and she definitely got paid for it for sure. But what I'm saying is, it's easier. I think it would be easier in life for Sonya Deville to walk around with a shaved head than it would for Mandy Rose to walk around with a shaved head. That's the way I'm looking at it, and that's why I think Sonya loses. Because I feel just whoever you think would look better with a shaved head in real life, that's probably who it's going to be. Like Sonya, I think can pull it off. Mandy, I don't know.
Yeah.
She's got a look that she needs to maintain for this character to work, and I think having a shaved head probably doesn't fit that. The final match of SummerSlam 2020. The week before Payback 2020, another pay-per-view. Braun Strowman, as the Universal Champion, defends his WWE Universal title against The Fiend, Bray Wyatt. Emphasis on The Fiend, because this is not fighting the Eater of Worlds. This is not fighting the Firefly Funhouse version. This is indeed a fight with The Fiend, with the new wrinkle of Alexa Bliss being added in, with the new potential wrinkle of Braun Strowman being put into whatever Bray Wyatt's version of the Lake of Reincarnation is, that is the Wyatt Swamp, and drowning in the Wyatt Swamp. Did he come up from the water a new person, a more evil person? Has he turned to the dark side? And has The Fiend, in a shock to everyone, will the Fiend be the one that walks away as the good guy in this feud? What's going to happen here?
Regardless of how I got the Fiend winning.
What do you think, Steve?
I gotta go with the Fiend.
It's not a bad bet.
It's my gut. My gut tells me I gotta go with the Fiend. I feel like Alexa's gonna be a big part of it. I think the future of her character is gonna fully come out, and we're gonna see what that's gonna be. So, because remember the last thing she says before he picks her up was, "Just remember you asked for this" or something. Or so, it was something to that effect. So I think there's more coming. So I'm going Fiend. I think Fiend's getting the title.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, like I said, it's not a bad bet. Some of the interesting fallout from this could be that either Alexa Bliss becomes, takes a heel turn and becomes the Beastmaster, so to speak. In the way that like Francine was the Beastmaster for the Pit Bulls in ECW, in the way that Nancy or Woman was kind of the one that tamed Kevin. She was the one that was with Kevin Sullivan. There's always kind of been like Macho with Miss Elizabeth, but more of a supernatural kind of thing, where it's almost like she's I don't want to say Paul Bearer, but she's the guide for the Fiend. There's some sort of connection between them, and Alexa Bliss is the one that's able to use that to her advantage, to send them out, to tell him what to do and give him instruction. He listens to her. They could do that. They could do a babyface route where they're more of a babyface kind of partnership there with Alexa and the Fiend, but I really don't know how that would work. The Fiend, I feel like the Fiend is not a babyface character. It's almost got to be like Bray Wyatt fights back the urges of the Fiend to become Bray Wyatt again, and like him and Alexa Bliss go on as like Firefly, Bliss, and Wyatt. I don't know. So
for all we know, this could be yet another evolution for Alexa Bliss.
Right.
Think about her first, incarnation as that pixie thing, and then she turned heel with Blake and Murphy, and then
Yeah, no, she's added layers to her character over the years, for sure.
So, I will say this. SummerSlam is shaping up to be somewhat of an entertaining show. As much as it can be, it's going to be in the Amway Center. We're going to get some pyro. We're going to get some better effects. We're probably going to... I don't know. I'm very hopeful. And we'll see... let's see how many of the finishes they fuck up, and we'll go from there.
Well, that's the big thing, is how many finishes they're fucking going to fuck up.
Like you said before, the matches tend to be usually pretty good, except for the finish.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's all you got. They really, if they fix that, that's one part of being able to start fixing the live shows, because you fuck up a finish on TV, and it sours people on watching the pay-per-view. If you fuck up a finish on pay-per-view, people stop watching your weekly show. Like, it's a never-ending cycle of fucking up when you do that. So you don't want to turn people off at this point. You need to gain back viewers. So they really need to make some wise decisions with what they do. The good thing is, it seems like the shit that I don't care for, like the ninjas, like Retribution, like all the bullshit things that are like filler for Raw and SmackDown are not on this show, which just goes to show you that you don't need 3 hours for Raw. You really don't, because, if you're not going to use everybody to their fullest potential, and you're just going to do fucking filler segments and security cameras and horse shit and, people eating turkey legs and grabbing them like Thor and whatever the fuck, like, you don't need 3 hours.
I'll be honest, I did get a kind of kick out of that.
I mean, that's funny. It's not funny. It's very funny. But it's just like, I don't know what this girl is from. What, The Bachelorette or The Bachelor or something? What the fuck? I don't know who she is. So I don't care that Angel Garza likes her, or that Ivar, who's married, by the way, likes her. But anyway, and Angel just got engaged on NXT after winning the Cruiserweight title. These guys are both married, and they're going after the girl from The Bachelorette
with Kayla Braxton also.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I guess we're not. I guess the TV character isn't married. The people are. But whatever. It's weird, bro.
I came on a little late. Did you guys talk about the passing of Xavier?
No, I'm glad you brought it up.
Not to be confused, folks, with Xavier Woods.
Right. For those of you of a
I wanna
certain
make that
age,
clear.
you're just not going to know who Xavier was. The all-around best Xavier had an MMA career as John Xavier. John was he was one of the first guys that when I watched indie wrestling around here, he was the Ring of Honor champ. He was the Northeast Wrestling champ. When I would go to indie shows, he was a presence for years and years until he stepped away to focus on his family, when he stepped away to focus on an MMA career. He was a big presence. And he was even making his comeback this year, which is all the more tragic. He was supposed to wrestle Jay Lethal at a Ring of Honor event, kind of honoring the anniversary or the legacy of Ring of Honor and bringing back some people who were no longer with the company.
I mean, he was the second ever Ring of Honor champion.
Right. He beat Low Key for the title, and he held it for
Like
a little
6
bit.
months,
You
I
know.
think.
He had a good reign with it, and then the problem is immediately what happened was Samoa Joe beat him, and then went on. Samoa Joe had like a 400-something day title reign with the Ring of Honor title. It was ridiculous, and it was like a legendary run. So it kind of got over. Xavier's work kind of got overshadowed by. At that time, right around the time Xavier was champion and then went into Samoa Joe, that was when TNA or Ring of Honor was starting to pick up steam and become a very well-known promotion and starting to get bigger names and everything. And, unfortunately, it was just they decided their future was in guys like Christopher Daniels, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, etc. And Xavier wasn't part of those plans, but he still worked the Northeast Wrestling stuff. He was the Northeast Wrestling champion for a very long time. He still worked other promotions within this area, and he was only 42. That's the tragedy of this whole thing. That
too young.
Xavier was only 42, and I don't. The other thing that's sad is they haven't said what happened, and usually, when they don't tell you what happened, it's not like he had a heart attack or a stroke or got hit by a bus randomly, and it was just some unforeseen thing. Yeah, unfortunately, it leans in a more tragic direction of an intentional or unintentional overdose or a suicide or some other tragedy because the cause of death hasn't been released. So still some question marks there, and it just
So you don't know
makes
if
you
it's going
think
to
the
be
worst.
something like Candido.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, it could be something that was just it happened, suddenly
Like a
like that
freak
with
thing.
Candido, right? Or it could be something, more worrying and more tragic. But either way, for people and you might not appreciate it if you're a younger guy, but if you're like 30 right now or in your 30s or maybe 40s at this point, and you were following Ring of Honor and independent wrestling back in the day, it was the renaissance of independent wrestling in 2005, 6, 7, and leading on to today. That was the renaissance when, like I said, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels, you had your Daniel Bryans or Brian Danielsons at the time. And even Seth Rollins was Tyler Black, and he was a big part of the Age of the Fall, and there was all kinds of great stuff
CM
going on
Punk,
in Ring of
too.
Honor. CM Punk had his first original Summer of Punk was in Ring of Honor, and they brought that Summer of Punk story sort of in a way, and they still called it the Summer of Punk, even though it was very different in the WWE. But what I'm saying is this was the cradle of it all. This was the genesis of the boom of independent wrestling of the mid-2000s, and he was right in the middle of all that, and he was a big part of it. He was a solid worker. He had a good look. I really liked watching him work. I was a fan of his work. I always wanted to, whenever there was rumblings, every couple of years there'd be rumblings that Xavier was going to make a comeback, and he'd wrestle a few matches here and there or something like that, or he'd talk with a promoter and then they get booked, whatever, they never made it work. The tragedy is that this guy had a lot more to give, not just in the past, but in the current, present, and the future of pro wrestling. He would have been a great guy to have around for more years to help advise some young guys and train young guys and wrestle some matches with them. Because 42, not that you're a spring chicken, but 42, you've still got a lot of life left to live. So to see a guy like Xavier taken away from us at such a young age is an absolute tragedy. It's a loss for wrestling. It's a loss for his family. It's a loss for society in general, because a young, I want to say healthy, good-looking guy with a lot going for him unfortunately has left us, and he leaves a big hole behind. So for those of you who've worked with Xavier or seen him work, our condolences to you and to his family, and it's It's really awful. And I can't say that I worked with him a lot because I didn't. He kind of was on his way out at the time I was on my way in, but I've never had a negative experience with him, and I always remember watching his matches and enjoying them and being a big fan. So, it's a real similar. Kamala was a big loss for a certain generation of fans. Xavier is a big loss for a certain generation of independent wrestling fans. So it's a loss to the community. So hate to bum you guys out with our last segment, but that's the reality of it. Is sometimes these things happen, and you just have to deal with them and address them. But
And on that note,
that's it for this week, man.
that is it.
We got anything we need to let the fine folks know?
No, nothing yet.
All right. So we will be back next week on YouTube and on Twitch, 7 p.m. on Eastern Time. I think we're also on Steve's Facebook. We're on a few other places. But be sure to follow Tag Me a Date on social media and throughout the internet. At Tag Me a Date on all social media. And when you go to youtube.com, you type in Tag Me a Date in the search bar. It'll bring up our profile. Hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell to get notifications for when we go live or upload videos. And again, be sure to follow the rest of our social medias at Tag Me a Date. If you prefer the audio version of the podcast to a video version on YouTube, if you prefer having it in your podcast app of choice, you can go to Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or the Google Play Podcast Store. Search again for Tag Me a Date as the username. You'll find the War Report podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the audio version of our podcast on your favorite podcast app. And that will do it for us. We're going to do... Oh, the audio version comes out, usually one day after our video version, so Wednesdays. Anything else we need to add before we go?
I think that's it.
Excellent. I think that covers it, folks. Like I said, follow at Tag Me a Date on social media. Subscribe to the podcast if you want the audio version of the podcast. And again, you search for Tag Me a Date. Otherwise, we'll be back live next week, 7 p.m. on Eastern Time for another edition of the War Report, brought to you by TagMeADate.com. Thank you so much for listening and watching, everyone.